Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Mom and I are both grateful that you can join us for another week. And we're excited. We are welcoming back Chris Cirak with us. He was on episode 122, Being You with us. And so we're super excited to have you back on the podcast, Chris, with us. And for anybody that didn't see the last episode, can you just give a little bit of a bio about you?
Yes, that last episode was quite a while back, so I'm sure we have new listeners by now. So excited to be back here on the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Um, my name is Cirak, and basically, I'm a contemplative teacher, bringing ancient wisdom to modern life. The wisdom still applies, it's just the format in which we consume and digest things and apply them has shifted and changed. So in my own journey, that was something I was looking for, is to simplify and look for the wisdom behind the words. And that's where I write from, and that's the place that channels through me. And it's not really a choice. It's just it came upon me, and you answer the calling when it's strong enough. So here I am today, author, speaker, and traveling the world doing retreats and talks and workshops and podcasts.
And we're glad about the last one, especially.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
We're glad about it
exactly.
all. Yeah, you have a
Yeah.
lot of very interesting information that you put out. We follow you on your social medias and stuff. And so it's really interesting just the information that you get out to the world. So we appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's really a co-creative process. So as we were even preparing for this, it's like whatever comes up wants to come up, and we're tuned to let that come to life.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we did sort of, and I think this will be a good jumping off point, and we'll see where it goes from talking about one of your last books that you did, which was The Five Levels of Awareness. And so I think it would be fun to start off with that and just kind of, we'll see where we head off onto, because yes, we truly believe that this organic kind of interviewing is the best to get the information out that needs to be.
You bet. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and speaking of simplifying, so really the five levels I've distilled down to one word, and the book came as a result of just doing a lot of one-on-one sessions, group sessions, and just over time observing. I used to scoff at the idea that observation was anything of, especially from the scientific standpoint, but it conveys everything we need to know. I spent a lot of time in isolation in the California desert, observing animals around me, and you start to see their patterns and their personalities, and it's just the understanding starts to sink in. So there's that direct experience that I teach from, that I write from, and that ultimately everyone learns best from, because it's our path. And anyone who has kids knows you can say all you want, they're going to do what they need to do to learn their lessons. And or if we have friends or family members, coworkers trying to talk them into something or convince them, they have to feel it for themselves to know what their truth is. Um, so the five levels of awareness really speak to the five pillars and the phases that we all go through. There's overlap, and there's from many readers that they start reading at level three, thinking, I'm at least halfway there, and but then they quickly realize we have a whole range of character traits and blind spots and areas. So you're never just one thing. You wind up realizing, oh, I have to work on some areas over here that are more level one or two. And then in this other area, I might, already have some good karma, some old soul magic that I don't have to put so much work into. There's enough awareness there already. So basically, Len is two, but we think that life is happening to us, and we live in this state of separateness and victimhood ultimately. And it's just a lot of noise and turmoil and suffering ultimately at that level. Of course, the purpose of that noise and the suffering is to start creating cracks in our resistance, in our need to control life. And those cracks then lead to level two awareness, which is because life is happening because of us, because of how we see things. It's not meant to cast blame at all. It's actually meant to empower us and show us that we can take full ownership over our happiness. And that then leads to, well, then life is happening for us. And everything's a mirror. We've heard that before. And we start to see our own input, our own reflection, our own mind patterns from which we manifest. And then we can really start to work on ourselves at level three. And that kind of cultivates in dark night of the soul, or just a more gradual awakening. And then we realize life is happening through us, level four. And through us is a state of flow. It's a state of, there's still a little self left in that, but we're in a state of manifestation and co-creation. And that then ultimately leads to level five awareness, the no self, where life is happening as us. So the identity dissolves completely. So two because, for, through, as.
I like that. I love that. And I think, I think we can probably get up the ladder of the self-awareness and then fall back down to a smaller level. And I could be wrong with that, but I think, depending on where our life is heading, sometimes we get more into our ego and we forget some of these things that we've learned and become aware of.
That's true.
Yeah, it's constantly constant learning. As long as we're in human bodies, we're meant to learn, we're meant to grow, we're meant to let go of limiting beliefs and the stuff that we've inherited. Most of the our issues, Carl Jung said, are the unlived life of our parents. So we're really healing our lineage, our ancestors, the generational stuff. So there's a lot there. A few generations, everyone's been exposed to war, or famine, or abuse, violence, and it's in us. Epigenetics shows how this has been passed along, and we're the lucky ones, quote unquote, to now work on this and heal the wounds that others maybe didn't have a chance to.
Yeah. We don't realize how much ego pushes us in our lifetime, and being aware of what we can do to get the ego to go away. So we can just live and be happy. Like that's a job in itself, because every day it's like you're constantly going, okay, I don't need to do that. Think about it this way, right? But I guess that's part of what you're talking about is the awareness. The more we are aware of what we're saying, I guess, and doing, our behavior. I always say your words don't match your behavior to people when they don't. It's like, okay, that doesn't work for me. Because you're not following through is what it says to me. Um,
Yes, yes.
so that to me is awareness too, where you're saying, and
And that really
I've said
speaks
that to
to,
people.
there's,
Go ahead.
yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. And that really speaks to the two places from which we can create and manifest from. It could be from blind patterns, so the subconscious, and then, the situation unfolds, and then we realize, oh, it doesn't match our expectations, or it doesn't, give us that permanent sense of happiness, health, self-love, whatever it is, because the outside can't. It will point us to doing the inner work from there. But years and sometimes decades can go into that path where we have to now deal with the physical manifestation of our subconscious motivations. Or we can develop more awareness now about what triggers us, and just sit in stillness and reflect on a lot of these things, these impulses, and prevent having to go through the longer process. But it's all good. It all leads to the same place.
So your book, does it show people how they can work with it to find that awareness of the 5 steps? Do you show them through that, or do you have programs on your actual where you are sort of thing on the internet that helps people find that awareness. I was thinking
Yeah,
like,
it's remarkably easy to develop awareness. We just don't encounter any institutions or stages in life that nurture it. It's just we are formed and shaped to become outward oriented, to become goal chasing, to be achievement based so early on, and there's no break in that. But it also takes an incredible amount of energy to keep ourselves in this separate state, separate from our authentic self, our truth, our resonant truth, felt knowing that lives in our body, from a higher self awareness, consciousness, from living a source led life. We're not taught these things anywhere along the line. And most people have to burn out or hit rock bottom to get there. But the book is very practical. It has check boxes and next steps, and just like what will take me from what can I check off at this level, and what do I need to work on. And it's really awareness is awareness. It's not trying to come up with a solution or fixing yourself or seeing yourself as a problem. It's literally just to notice, oh, this is what I've been repeating, a pattern or a habit, or this is what I keep seeking for in relationships that always turn out the same, or this is my worldview. That's why life always feels the same, even if I change my job or move to a new city. It winds up being the same. So it's literally the light of awareness is just reading about it, reflecting on it, seeing it. And the seeing it just immediately evokes action. It brings us out of the darkness of the repetition of things. And then you feel compelled to start changing things for the better. And you now have a tuning, a felt sense of, I no longer want to do this because it doesn't benefit me. And so it just takes care of itself. And then that becomes the journey when we can start to uh, we know all this is to orient ourselves, reorient ourselves towards seeing the world around us as a place of growth and a place of um, the mirror, and so that we can actually turn the corner eventually and live in flow and live in a state of higher guidance. And there's a very different life there. Without prescribing it, looks different for everyone, but the common traits are simplification. You just don't want so much stuff around you anymore. So, purging, and everything carries energy. And a streamlining of what you put your energy into, and what type of people you surround yourself with, and how you apply yourself in the world through job and private life. And all these things start to become optimized really just on their own, because you can no longer go against your inner knowing.
Mm.
So life in the flow is just very simple, and it's continuously inspired. And really, the biggest problem is um, you still have to eat and sleep. I can't manifest and bring to life every inspiration that comes to me, every idea that downloads into us. But that's a good problem to have.
yeah,
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think the more that you can be the observer in that way, you do become aware of yourself. And I love how you talked about, like, simplifying your life, because I think the more simple our life is, the more we can hear the voice that we need to hear from inside, that is going to help to bring us to that knowing and be able to disassociate ourselves with our own ego.
yeah,
Yes. We really just need, sustenance, food, a roof over our heads, and as a basic requirement. Most of the stuff that we accumulate, titles and status and attachments, trophies, and all these things, most of it doesn't matter. Attachments that we think will bring us something that really is found inside in a connection to a higher intelligence. And so that stuff naturally just falls away, and you just don't need to lug so much heavy energy through life with you.
Yeah, exactly. And so do you think that as we're kind of doing this journey with ourselves, then we're opening ourselves up more to hear what our true path is and how to live our most authentic life at that point then?
Yeah, and that's really the two ways we can live from the mind identified state, which is all of this conditioning that's imposed on us, who we're supposed to be, what we should be doing, what earns you the most respect or status or prestige or money, or all of this is noise ultimately that doesn't reflect your authentic self. It's not to be denied, but the core of our motivations needs to come from a deeper place, from within, within the body knowing, and that's really our GPS, the blueprint that resonates differently for every one of us, which is just this crazy miracle that the powers of creation took the time to instill each and every one of us with just like this resonant mechanism. And you could call it inner voice, intuition, gut, instinct, heart space, divine self, higher self. It all points to the same place. And if we live from that felt knowing, it'll just tell us this is a path I want to take. This situation resonates, the other situation doesn't. So I can let that one go. Your life just becomes optimized. We're only confused when we're in our head, when we're identified with our thoughts, when we're every thought that comes along, we just glom onto it, we believe it, and now we try to make sense of it. We try to know things. This whole idea of knowing things is one of the greatest illusions. The life is happening in the now, as we've heard many times, and that's a relationship with the unknown, with the uncertain of life happening. And to be in that space before the formless takes shape, before the unknown becomes known, that's the potent place of full life connectedness and flow and co-creation. And that's when we experience ourselves in like the most alive state possible. Everything else is the past, everything else is the future, and it's a stale place and it's a repetitive place when we're not really present, and we start to suffer, and then that of course puts us on a path where like I don't want to suffer anymore. I'm gonna find out what this thing of presence is and awareness, um, and then you start accessing the higher realms and start vibrating at a frequency that becomes more and more crystal clear, and then you reorganize your life around that.
Yeah.
True. I just read a book not that long ago about boundaries, and which was takes you into your awakenings, I would think, or it did with me, because when it
Uh,
after I read it, then I started having thoughts and dreams about past stuff that it puts me into the now. And I've been sort of hanging on to it for this long sort of thing. So then it was like identifying with it, like your awakening and saying, I got to remove that because that's instilling this stuff on me today. And I don't want to be that, have that association now. Right. So it was very interesting. So when you were talking about it, it's like the awakening is waking up to saying, whoa, I'm not doing that anymore. You can't take me down that. Rather, you can blame it on somebody else. Not likely, you should blame it on yourself because you're the one that's appointed that direction to yourself. But at the same time, you're thinking, wow, and I'm not that young. Okay.
well, it comes to us whenever it comes to us, but that's so beautifully articulated. And I remember early on just these moments where you connect the dots as you were describing it. It's like, oh, this leads to this behavior and this reaction and this control and this and this and this and this, and you just see the whole house of cards ultimately, and then it collapses once you see it. Um, and it's really beautiful how yeah, boundaries, for example, it's in initially setting them tightly is important, but even then that relaxes. So it's all a process, which is the important thing to remember. Um, and as much as taking ownership over your happiness, also no longer waiting for someone to save us. These are all kind of embedded things, and we start to realize that no, no, we're here for ourselves in the best possible way, and then when we can work through all that stuff, then we can start serving others. But we have to heal ourselves first before we can heal others, free ourselves first before we can free others. And we're never complete, so there's these elements of humbleness and patience, and that will always be there for regardless what level of awareness. Acceptance is one of the key pieces that moves us through these levels of awareness. And basically, the mind thinks of acceptance as making something you don't like permanent, and oh no, now I'm just gonna accept that I'm flawed, or accept that become a doormat for life. Whatever happens, you just let it be, and people step over you, and life rolls over you, and it's couldn't be farther from that. Acceptance is coming out of resistance to right now. And that resistance is what keeps us stuck. That's why we can't move forward, and we just keep repeating. So acceptance is, think of it as temporary acceptance. It's a little mind hack, and ultimately, it's not even a thing of the mind. Acceptance is your feelings about something, accepting how you feel about a person, or a place, or something that happened, and about yourself, especially our inner critic is our worst critic. That level of acceptance is just allowing yourself to complete uh, the loop on an unfinished emotion. When we react to our feelings about something, that's ultimately what reactivity is. We're not reacting to the person, place, or thing that happened around us. We're reacting to how we interpreted that, and the feeling that shows up based on that conditioning, on that interpretation. So we're really reacting to our own feelings all the time. Something's unpleasant, we push it down. We don't want to feel that. That interrupts that emotion. Something pleasant happens, we cling to it. We don't want to let it go. That also interrupts that emotion. So we're full of these stuck feelings that are essentially unfinished emotions, unfinished experiences, and they stay stuck until we can close that open loop. And the mind, particularly, it wants to keep us safe, and having open loops inside of us, unfinished feelings, keeps it in this state of easily feeling triggered, of constantly looking for solutions, of always being on the lookout for what could go wrong, and all these things. So it keeps us in our head having all these unfinished emotions, because the mind wants to protect us. So, doing the inner work in large part is through inner child healing, through somatic work, through meditation, through just being in nature, present with the trees, or whatever it may be, bird watching. It brings us back into closing the loop on these unfinished emotions, and that's how we come out of our reactivity, rewire the brain, are able to stay present longer, catch ourselves drifting into other thoughts sooner. Everything just improves from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
Find so much that now I say to myself, if I'm thinking something that I really, and I say to myself, why are you thinking that? Just let it go, And so I find myself saying that to myself a lot. Okay, well, that's enough of that one. Let's move on to the next thing we want to talk about here, because you're right. It takes you into all these different mood swings too, ups and downs and things like that you're traveling through when you have some of this stuff that you really don't need, and when you say to yourself, okay, that's enough of that, like, you need to just drop it and let it go. But it's a tough job. It's a constant um, babysitting yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to get that out of your awakening of every moment of your days, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
I love this babysitting idea, because that's really what it is. It's sitting with your and a lot of the unfinished emotions are from when we were younger and less aware, or childhood, and we're just absorbing things, and now we think that's us, and so all these patterns, you just have to sit with them. That's a big piece of it. become aware, obviously, that there's something there, and but sit in stillness. It's a luxury these days to find stillness. We're always so busy doing,
Yeah.
and it kind of takes care of of itself. Our natural state is to be high vibe, balanced, flowing beings, connected beings, and we just keep ourselves out of that. I always say our job is not to make ourselves happy. Our job is not to make ourselves unhappy, because that's what we're doing with this constant mind identification and this constant control. And that's really it. There's really only two states we can live from: the mind identified state, that's where all the noise and the chaos and the control and the fear and the lack and the anger and the attachments, the expectations, and even hopes, and all these things are mental aspects, and they make life complicated and chaotic. And then we can live from higher consciousness, God consciousness, and there's an incredible simplicity to that, and a being led as opposed to trying to make everything happen. But yeah, you have to do the work and more and gradually move into that. Some of the frustration we often feel is that it's a gradual process, and we wish it could happen faster, which is, of course, just a symptom of being in our head again, wanting to see the outcome. And just learning to be is the ultimate state. Just look at your motivations. You can very quickly see what is motivating you to act. Is it coming from wanting to get to somewhere, reaching a place? And even those on the spiritual path and or meditators are easily, I know I did fall for this idea, oh, I need to get to this place of enlightenment, of greater awareness. We get there, but not by wanting to be there. We get there by wanting to be here and just fully accepting where we are. Just think of the message energetically, even that we send to our body, all our cells, trillions of cells that are collaborating to make you you, which is, crazy, where they get their instructions from. But the message that we send to ourselves when we say, I don't like who I am, I need to be someone better, I want to get to somewhere else, that's a message of resistance and self-denial and like just negativity. And then of course our body will respond to that and show ailments and um, to not to punish us really, but to wake us up to we have to be learn to become really, really accepting of what's happening right now. No amount of resistance to it is going to change it. It's already happened. It's all actually quite logical if you think about it. You can't change something that's already happened. Why resist it or be upset? It makes no sense. But it's wiring. It's a nervous system wiring that we need to come out of. And so we create that gap through awareness where we no longer just blindly react to things that happen, but give them the space. And with that space, to let things be, there's just a bigger perspective that comes in. And so you're no longer just single-mindedly repeating the same old thing, but you start to see, hey, the person that cut you off in traffic, maybe they got some bad news or they had a bad day or absent-minded for some other reason. A much deeper compassion and empathy starts to seep in, and we see people from their perspective, and not always in this kind of defensive mode of trying to validate our own. So everything becomes, smoother and easier to handle, and a bigger perspective on life can only benefit everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's funny because I was just having a conversation very similar to that with my granddaughter this morning about, seeing people and changes that they're making in their life and accepting people for, kind of where they're at in their life. And then the whole, yeah, we can't fix the past. So just move forward, just try to do it from a different space and mindset of being positive and looking at, not being so negative with everything. And we were talking, we got into even talking about war and things like that. I said, what if instead of being so fearful about all of this stuff, we just sent love and peace out to everybody? If we're energy bodies, isn't that just going to create more love and energy eventually around if more and more people start to do it? So that was it's just interesting that got on this.
to stop it.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. We're really, our own frequency is much more powerful than we think. The universe is an energetic universe. It speaks energy. That's the language. What we actually say is the words matter very little. It's the motivation, the energy behind it, that is the real contribution to the world. So if we speak our truth, if we learn to stand in our authentic self and our higher light, that carries, over to everyone that touches that. They take that home with them. They pass that on to their environment, their family and kids and so forth. And it's beautiful that you're having those conversations. Are you finding, are you being met with some resistance, or because this idea of what the ancient texts call anicca, impermanence, is a really central part to that, is to recognize everything is in process. There's never really a reason and any benefit to singling out one moment and saying, this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is for me, this is against me, this is true, this is false. This is trying to make time stand still. In that very little instant, that may be the case, but you have to be prepared to reassess in the very next moment again. And then you realize, well, this is just this constant judging is wearing me out. It's no way to live. It's the only way to live is to let things be and evolve and grow and realize everyone's at their station of life, and you support that. The best way to support them through that is actually to allow them to be that way. So, if you have trouble with family members or partners or coworkers or kids, and it's really they will move through whatever phase they're going through the quickest if we don't resist them or judge them or want them to be different, but rather that we hear them, we see them, we hold space for them as they are, and recognizing uh, there's some lessons there to be learned, just like we had to go through other things and learn our lessons. So it's all good. There's no reason to judge anything. It's just start staying in that flow of acceptance and presence, and that really takes care of everything.
Mhm. I think most people just want to be seen and acknowledged, right? We just want people to exactly that, accept us for who we are at whatever point we are at in our life, good or bad. But I think it's all really good because even some of the other stuff that we hang on to is just lessons that we need to know to shift us up into that higher level of consciousness that you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's a great, shift in perspective. If we can start looking at every situation that comes along as a gift, ultimately, is what is it here to teach me? There's never this place of, oh, I'm going to be happy forever and get the pieces of my life in place, and they're not going to move and not going to change. That's just not the game here. That's not the purpose. So the constant growth and evolution and through acceptance, awareness, and inner work, it's what we're here to do. And then how we apply ourselves from this greater and greater awareness, that then leads into purpose and calling, your earlier questions coming back. Um, and then you're no longer just living for yourself and being kind of the scary, separated little me that's has to fight, for its slice of the pie in the big world. That there's that unity consciousness that comes in more and more, that we're all, as Ram Dass said, we're all souls in different packaging. And looking at people that come along and or in your family, and just seeing them more and more at the soul to soul level, and recognizing they're human. I call the little human is having to, experience things and go through lessons, and that's totally fine. Our own little human will always be there, but when we can
Yeah.
start to see that little human from our awareness, then it doesn't control us anymore. It's all good from there.
Yes, that is very, very true. And we always will have that part of us, right? To fall back on.
Yeah,
Mm.
it doesn't matter as long as we're in human form. There's lessons to be learned. It's If we were so completely high vibrating, we would, evaporate or turn into ether. Like it just, as long as we're contained in our bodies, there's an inherent limitation. Part of greater awareness is to become aware of that and then learn to be okay with that. Learn to be okay being limited for the time being while we're here. Learn to accept that others are at earlier stations in their journey, so it becomes a new set of challenges that are focused more around, well, continued acceptance, but also patience. Also, um, uh, ultimately we have to confront and accept the darkness in the world in order to transcend that. But if we are to transcend our human form, we have to accept and face the full spectrum that is available in form, which is all the dark stuff as well, not just our own, but in humanity. And we'd like to focus on increasing our vibration and the lifting ourselves up and becoming light workers and all that. That's one end of it, but we also have to learn to accept and not lose trust and faith in higher consciousness faced with a pretty dark world, especially currently. So if we can do that, that too is inherently what compels us to transcend our human form. That's actually my last book, God is a Conservative, where the expansion into the inversion really of truth leads us to then collapse, to conserve, to fall back into what is universal law, what is divine law, but with greater and greater awareness. So it both sides, the expansion of into testing our limits, it's kind of built into every generation where the young ones come along and they want to throw out all the rules of old and try and do everything new, and then you kind of mature and learn, and then you bring that back, you conserve the pieces that do work, but you come back to that with much greater awareness than the previous generation. And then you can see that in nature as well, how it through just DNA flexibility and epigenetics, that there's a constant testing of creativity of what can I create here, and new species and new circumstances that many of them don't are not sustainable. And so they kind of go away again. But there's a constant stretching of nature, of testing its own limits, of consciousness growing beyond what it knows, and then coming back with even more certainty, with even more groundedness. And so we have this expansion and the collapse, this exploration into the unknown and the untested, and then conserving from that which works. So that's my latest book, which that happens at the individual level, but collectively as well. And so we're experiencing that right now in the world.
Mhm.
So while we're in it, it may not be so much fun, but these are the cycles, and life is cyclical in nature. The patterns that we don't dissolve, they keep coming back in one shape or another. The truths that we need to really ground ourselves in need to be tested and lost in a way, to in an involution kind of way, where the consciousness loses itself in the material and in the physical world, and then through the struggles of that we rediscover it. So it's all an incredible design, this experiment. I think of it as a video game. Some people struggle with incarnation concepts, and others with quantum physics and parallel worlds and multiverse and all that. I just say, let's think of it as a video game. You plug in, you play through the levels, you beat certain, characters, and you want to make your way to the boss. But if you jump levels, if you try to bypass the progress and just jump to the main boss right away, you'll probably fail. And so then you plug back out and reflect and learn your lessons. Most of our growth actually happens in between lives. We're pretty stuck while we're in one incarnation, one sequence. we can make some changes, but the real reflection happens when we unplug, reflect on the whole thing, and then plug back in. And okay, I'm going to do this one again, and this time I have uh, a more stayed in my way to approach life in a grounded, more casual manner. So anyway, it's fun ways to look at the same kind of experiment from different angles. And so that's what I love having these conversations.
They're great. These conversations are great.
They are, and I
Yes.
love the way that you relate that to like the video game because I think that's so true, and people will be so able to relate to that I got to take the steps, and if you fall down doesn't mean that it's a terrible thing. It just means that I needed to fall back down, get that lesson, and then move on. And when you finally conquered that level, you're like, yes, okay, next.
Yes, exactly.
On to the next.
And we have unlimited lives. That's the best part, right? When you're throwing in coins at the arcade and you're counting your quarters. I know that dated me, but or even just modern games, you're going to run out of lives. That's the main thing. But we don't. We have literally unlimited opportunities to keep refining ourselves, and even from there, from my out of body experiences and some of the deeper meditations and glimpses into what's beyond this. Earth School is really one of the earlier stages, and there's just so much more frequency that we can cultivate in ourselves. The bodies are pretty low frequency, and so the work never ends, and we just got to keep going.
Agreed. Absolutely agree with that. That also was part of our conversation was about reincarnation. It was a full conversation, but it was about reincarnation and what happens after we leave and what our perception is of, what happens once our soul leaves our body is kind of how that all started that conversation and then trickled down from there. But it was very interesting to hear from somebody younger their perception of, I don't know. I wonder what will happen, right? And she had I think we're greeted by loved ones and other beings. And, she says, I think there's some kind of self-reflection that is done. And then she says, and then I don't know. So I thought that was really cool to hear from somebody a lot younger, just what their perception of it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
She's pretty
And it
good
does
that
seem
way.
to be, yeah, it does seem to happen, this greater awareness expansion happens sooner, it feels like. Midlife crisis, that term kind of points to something, but I hear more and more about third life crisis and even quarter life crisis, where you start questioning the way we've been told to live and start waking up to there must be a better way. But this, what you mentioned, is really key. This staying in a state of wonder. I don't know what happens after that. That's actually one of the elements of presence, of letting yourself be, of letting others be, of letting the world be, is just to acknowledge, I don't know. Again, the universe is energetic. It'll reflect back everything that we put out. So if you're always seeking to know, then the universe will give you more things you don't know. It's just a never-ending loop, and then you just get exhausted by that.
Yeah.
So I sometimes half jokingly say I have the answer to, for example, all this debate about the origins of the planet and Big Bang and all these things. And I'm like, well, the answer is very simple, is to let go of your need to know. That does away with all those questions, all that insecurity or debate and all that. It's fun to have, not saying don't have that, but if your confidence in your life purpose hinges on knowing things, you're gonna, be disappointed, and it'll never end. And that's okay too. There's a process and everything, but ultimately to be in the state of um, a healthy dance with uncertainty, with I'm not saying let go of your experience or that the past doesn't matter, the skills that you've developed don't matter. That all that comes with you, but hold it loosely. Really, what matters is to be comfortable with the unknown, to allow it to be. This is where the dance of life happens, and so we just we hold ourselves back from that when we cling too much to what we know and what we believe in, and what that's all scaffolding. And we just have to learn to let go of that and just be here now, respond to what happens, and be a participant in life as opposed to like an outside actor.
It's like being a child again, way back when you're a small child, you don't know any better, right? And it's just living in the day to find out what's going to be, there tomorrow or even today, right? So, it's like saying we need to go back into that where our mind's just open to anything. And, because, if you think about a child, like it's always in wonderment, we're always in that, in wonder. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. They trust
Yeah.
the
And if you
process,
look at
right?
some of exactly, if you look at the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat Hanh, or some people have really dedicated themselves to uh, expanding awareness. They're all very childlike, and with the maturity and the expanded awareness, it's it's really our natural state to be in wonder, to be in awe, to can't wait to see what happens next. In fact, that's one of the mantras. If you can keep that in mind, I can't wait to see what happens next. That keeps us from getting stuck because we don't stop to assign meaning or pass judgment or anything like that. That's when we start to linger and amplify something that's already happened. But rather to stay in that flow into just I'm going to wait to pass judgment to before to, to see what something means. And but then you never come out of that state. You just stay in that state of I'm going to wait to see what this means, because then you start to realize nothing means anything. It could be a blessing one moment, it could be a curse the next, and vice versa. And just this impermanence concept starts to sink in and become felt. There's no reason to ever stop and say this is something. The
Right.
idea of is just it's a mental thing. It likes to apply statements of permanence to life, but it's really just the mind categorizing and organizing and trying to control things.
Right.
So again, coming out of our head and more into our body takes care of that. And then we just feel our feelings, feel them fully. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant. But most of our fear and distorted relationship with our feelings is actually our reactivity to them. And that's 95% of our energy goes into the reactivity and managing it and avoiding some things and clinging to others. And so when we become more aware, we come out of that reactivity, then we can truly feel our feelings in the natural intended way, because it's those feelings that leave behind an imprint of truth, of resonance, and that tells us what path to take. And now we have a perfect internal guidance system, no more mental confusion and cloudiness, and that's life. That's how life is supposed to be, at least.
Yes,
It
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 is.
absolutely is. So, speaking of paths, can you tell everybody the path to find you?
Oh yes, of course. So the source of truth is my website, Cirak.com, Cirak.com. You can find me on social media, and all the links to YouTube and other stations are on there. And my books are out on Amazon and bookstores everywhere as well. And literally, if you Google Cirak, you'll find me.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Well, it's been such a pleasure having you on. If you had a final thought to leave with us and our followers, what would it be?
Mm. Really, of all the challenges, our inner critic is the greatest challenge. It's the part that we struggle with the most, our self-acceptance. And if you can just take a little edge off of how you treat yourself and be more kind to yourself, more patient with yourself, just a little bit will already get the ball rolling. And it doesn't take much. There's just little cracks that we need to create in the veneer of our control structure and to let the light of awareness come in, and it starts to spread on its own into our whole being and then onto others. So we just give ourselves a little bit of a break whenever we feel we're hard on ourselves, and the rest will take care of itself.
Wonderful.
I like
Well,
it.
yeah, me too. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. It's such a pleasure. It's always fun talking to you and you sharing all your wealth with us and our listeners. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I know, thank you for so beautifully holding space for this to happen, because what comes through me is also the space we create together. And I hope to be back, I guess, in episode 500 something.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Or sooner.
Okay, deal.
Yes.
We'd love
Yes.
to have you back. So thank you so much
Okay.
for being on
Thank you,
with
Kim
us.
and Barb. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Mhm.
And everyone else, we will see you on the next one.
You will.